and welcome to this week's episode of Spooky Boy and the Spirit Sisters, a paranormal podcast for the strange and unusual.
By the strange and unusual.
This week's episode is a special one, not only because it's our Halloween episode, but because we have a special guest. But before we dive into our topic, Cassidy is going to do some housekeeping for us.
We just want to take a moment to thank you all for your support, your stories, and sharing your experiences with us. Our goals with this show is to create a safe place to start opening up and having these discussions. We are not experts. We are learning and exploring these topics as we go. We are being vulnerable, sharing our experiences with you because we want to take this journey together, seek the truth together. We love hearing from you, and if we are to continue building and growing our community, we need your help. So please share us, share with us, and that way we can share more with you. Like, follow, subscribe, share. Visit our website. Listen to us on your favorite app. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Buzzsprout, YouTube with closed captioning, and more. Stay up to date on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Even just convincing one friend to listen, whether it's someone who likes this stuff or someone who would benefit from this community, it's a great way to open up the conversation. So again, share us, share with us, so we can share with you.
So in today's episode, we are going to be discussing Halloween, Samhain, and ancestor veneration. And we are joined today by a special guest, pagan author, and one of my mentors, Kerri Connor.
Hi.
I put my head on the
Sounds like a fucking phone sex hotline. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey. What
How
are you
you
wearing
doing?
For
tonight?
$99.99, you can
Are you
get your
wearing?
rocks off for you.
Are you wearing khakis, Jake, from State Farm?
Are you wearing corduroy? Is it soft?
Oh, I like that corduroy because it squeaks when you rub it.
So Kerri and I actually go way back. The first time I met Kerri in person was at the Harry Potter Book 6 midnight release at the Borders by us.
In like 2005.
Oh, yeah, in 2005.
Yes. I worked at the Borders, and it was because of Borders I wrote my first book. I was hiding in the back room because I worked in the back room. And when people needed New Age section, they would call me out of my office because I dealt with the New Age section. And I would get a lot of requests from people that were looking specifically for a pocket guide of correspondences, more or less. So things that, like, this herb means this, and this color means this, and the moon phases mean this. And a lot of the books at the time that were available, it was all backwards, where it would say, if you want to do a spell for prosperity, it would tell you, okay, you can use any of these herbs. I took a different approach saying, okay, well, if you have this herb, you can use it for these different things. So you could make the spell fit based on what you had instead of running out to buy everything that a spell or whatever said you needed.
Okay.
It was all about using what you had on hand without having to try to go and get more. And I wrote the book in 2 weeks. I sent it to an agent that I had sent something to when I was 18. When I got out of high school, I had sent something to the same agent, and she didn't take it. And I saw that she was still an agent when did I write that book? It would have been 2003. So I got to do math. I was 33 years old. So it had been 15 years since I had sent anything to that agent. And I sent it to her, and she called me. And when I say sent it to her, this is when we actually had to print all of this stuff out.
Yeah, and you actually had
put
to
it in an envelope
Yeah.
and mail it priority. We couldn't do email submissions back then. Email was obviously a thing, but they did not take email submissions. So I printed it out. I sent it to her. And in about a week, I got a phone call saying, I want to represent this book. And she remembered me from what I had sent her 15 years earlier. Now, you got to remember, agents read thousands of manuscripts. Crazy woman remembered me. So that was a good thing. So she says, I want to represent this. And I said, yeah, okay. And she put the contracts in the mail, because that's what we did back then. And before I even got the contracts in the mail to sign, she had sold it to New Page Books. So that book was written, agented, and sold to a publisher in literally 30 days.
Damn.
I was lucky. I was lucky. That book now, I don't recommend it. I don't. I mean, yeah, it's going to tell you some of the basics, but if I rewrote that book now, it would be twice as big. It would have a lot more information. And New Page was bought out by Red Wheel Weiser a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago now at this point. I'm not even exactly sure when. And they took a lot of their older books and put them into e-format only. So you can download a Kindle copy or a Nook copy, but you're not going to find a hard copy unless you go and buy it used. And you can probably get it used for like $3 whole.
Ooh. $3
Yeah, but I mean, honestly,
Everyone be
going back to that, you're talking 2003, where a lot of people didn't really know, and it was still a very like hush hush kind of thing. You don't talk about this stuff. So like you say now, because you wrote the book and you know so much more since then, that you would be like, screw that book. Here's a new one that I wrote. But like back then, or even right now, it's great. Then, so that
when it came out, it was a bestseller for New Page Books.
So that, like...
It sold over 10,000 copies.
Not only, that's amazing.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That is huge in the New Age market to sell 10,000 copies.
I was going to say, what do you think the difference was the first time you submitted it, like, 15 years beforehand, and then when you submitted again and finally got accepted, like...
Well, it was a different book. Okay. It was a completely different idea. I mean, the first one, literally, I won't even tell you what it was about, because... It was a humorous book. You would have found it in the humor section. And it had to do with sex.
Oh.
Okay.
Ow.
And
that'll
it was
be in our
OnlyFans. 18-year-old
OnlyFans.
girl, and I'll tell you what, that 18-year-old girl had a hell of a lot of experience by the time she was 18, and she could tell you a shit ton about sex.
Can you slide me a copy of that book?
Do you still have that in deep files in a basement somewhere?
I honestly might still have it on my computer. I'm not sure if I do or not.
Oh my God.
But it did talk about how the best place to find a one-night stand was outside of the hockey locker room.
Again, can you slide me a copy?
I think now that transitions into a bar.
No, it's still best places outside of a hockey locker room.
Where the hell's a hockey locker room this time of year?
That's for our
it's COVID. There's COVID, so you can't help it. But hockey players are still... I'm sorry, hockey players are the best lovers. It's that simple. It's that simple.
Got any hockey players out there? Can you leave a comment?
Don't
hear us, fans.
Musicians seem to really do it for me.
What was that?
Musicians.
No, musicians, honestly, they suck because all they want to do is play with their strings. It's hockey players that know how to slap the puck. As I said.
Any single hockey players out there?
You gotta realize one thing, okay? As I said, this woman remembered me after 15 years. Trust me, it made an impression.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Anyway, Samhain.
Samhain.
Well,
Samhain.
Before we dive into that too much, we did have a fan write in, and they had a lot of questions about our Hello Old Soul episode, which the second part of that will be airing after this episode. So Ashley wrote in, and she said, "Hello, I have a few questions. How soon after death can your soul reincarnate? Like when you die, can your soul immediately reincarnate into a different form? Or does it have to hang in the spirit world for a while? If your soul is somehow able to quickly reincarnate after death, then do you think your still living loved ones would be able to communicate with your past soul, even though your soul may be in some other form in the physical world and or in another universe?" I think that's a really a lot of really good questions right there. So from what I've read, and if anyone else has anything to chime in, please do. So from the stuff that I've read, specifically from the stuff that Dolores Cannon has put out, is she has said that it's up to the soul. Like, for example, if a soul has passed and it was a very traumatic death, it's going to take a lot of healing before that soul can reincarnate back onto this plane. So a lot of steps go into it. There's the actual passing into the light. There's looking back on your life and seeing all the different lessons that you've learned and all the lessons that you have yet to learn. There's healing that goes into play. You know, if you died a really, really traumatic death, you know, that's just like we as humans, if you have a traumatic experience that happens, you need to take time to heal. You need to process. And it's not for the best for someone to go, that was super traumatic, let me go into the next super traumatic thing back to back to back.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily go into the light right away either. So you can linger here. And if you've ever watched the show Ghost Whisperer, you would know that.
Don't make me throw up. All right, let's keep this going.
I was going to say, like...
Hey, it's a fun show.
Yeah.
I like
it.
how
I mean,
cheesy it is
it's so cheesy. I don't know.
Well, that doesn't mean it's not fun. Cheesy can be fun.
And isn't it like, I mean, haven't people talked about it possibly being a choice as well?
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
a choice.
It
It is a choice. You decide when you want to go back. And not only that, it depends on how many times you've been around. People who have been around the block several times can go back faster because they know what the heck they're doing. Newer souls take longer.
Well, it's like during my past life, you know, during that transition between like that space as I was going through my regression and stuff, it felt like I was in that space that I was in for possibly centuries. Like I just was like, this is where I need to be for a while, kind of thing.
Time also is a factor in it. So when we think time on the physical realm, we think chronological. You know, there's minutes that go into hours that turn into days. Like in that other plane or that other whatever you want to call it, like whether it's beyond the veil, another plane, another dimension, time works differently. So there's two different times. There's the Kairos time and there's Chronos time. Chronos, as in like chronological, it's like there's a past, there's a present, and there's a future, and it goes linear. Kairos, however, it's more all of these things happening simultaneously. Like, for example, when you experience deja vu, you sit there and you go, wait, I've experienced this before.
Spiralated.
Yeah.
Glitch in the matrix.
Yeah. So the time is different. So say, for example, on that other plane, 5 minutes in this time could have gone by, but 5 minutes in a place where time is different, it could be longer, it could be a lot less. Like, think about when you go to sleep sometimes. I've had it.
Well, and I don't even know that you can compare the two because we try to see their time by ours. Mm-hmm. And you really can't judge it that way.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's something completely different than what we experience. And until we experience, it's really hard to describe, much less know how it works.
Right.
But, yeah.
So basically, to answer your question, Ashley, we have no idea. It is really up to the soul. It's really, really, when it comes down to it.
The answer is it depends on what the soul wants.
Exactly.
The other part of her question, though, she asked about being able to commune with spirits once they've reincarnated. Can you commune with them? Yes, but in a different way. A spirit that you commune with before it's reincarnated is going to be different. Yes, you can, I could commune with your spirit going to sleep tonight. I could dream you into my dream.
Weird.
But that is a different thing than actually communicating with them the way you would after they had gone but not returned yet.
Okay.
So you can. The chances are they're not going to know it's you because what we tend to do when we reincarnate is we forget.
Yeah.
And often when we reincarnate as babies, we might not necessarily forget. There's theories that one of the reasons why babies are so frustrated and cry for no reason, when you can't seem to figure out why is this child crying, this baby just won't stop crying. They're clean, they're fed, they're happy, they're loved. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong, except for the fact that they remember they used to be able to do things that they can no longer do, and that is frustration. So there are theories out there that some of the frustration we see in babies when they try to do something, or when especially trying to crawl and walk, and they get really mad. It's because they know they used to be able to. But as you get older in that incarnation,
you forget more.
You forget more and more and more. Some people are able to remember those things because they are much, much older souls, and they know how to try and keep all of that straight, more or less. When they come into a new body, they're like, okay, this time around, I'm going to do this. And they remember that part, is that they have to do this.
Okay.
What I was going to say is just something to kind of give you an idea. What comes to mind is, because, we try and explain things through examples, but have you ever had it where you go to sleep, and whether it's you take a nap and you feel like,
No.
you take a nap and only 5 minutes go by, but you have this deep, in-depth dream that feels like it's been hours and hours.
Yes.
And then you wake up and you look and it's like it's only been 5 minutes.
Can't
You're like,
remember.
what century am I in right now?
Or, you can sleep a whole night. You can have a full 8 hours. I know, you all suck at sleeping, but you can have a full 8 hours of sleep. But it literally just feels like you blinked, and all of a sudden, oh shit, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and my alarm's going off.
Yeah, that's me every night.
Yeah, same.
The time is it's
different.
Yes, so that would be the.
We
best
have
thing.
a concept of time that does not exist. In other dimensions. It's really, that's all it comes down to, is our concept of time. It's because it's what we're taught. It's what we learn. It's what we're taught. If we taught people different things, we would know different things. But this is what we are taught, so that's what we know.
Again, I highly recommend, as I said in the past episode, reading books by Dolores Cannon. I know she's got these other books, like the different waves and stuff like that, but specifically the book that kind of pertains more so to past lives is her book Between Death and Life? I think it is. I always mix the idea. It's Between Death and Life. And it goes more into all the different accounts of people and their past lives and that in-between state, and kind of what all of these people experienced in between their past lives. So that's a really, really good question. Thank you so much for writing in with us. And again, anyone else who has any questions, whether it's pertaining to something in this specific episode or a past episode or something you want us to discover or go into in a next episode, please let us know, and we will definitely be sure to cover it. But with that being said, Kerri, tell us a little more about yourself, and then we will go ahead and dive into the topic of Samhain and Halloween.
What do you want to know?
The other ones.
Well, how did you start? So for our audience, how did you start your practice in?
How did I start my practice?
Within
started,
spirituality and all that
Did
stuff.
you grow up with?
No, I grew up in a diehard Christian home.
Oh, same.
My first bizarre experience was when I was 6 years old. My dog was following my mom around all day. And that night, my bedroom door was directly across the hallway from my parents' bedroom door. And there was a set of stairs in between. And I was in bed, and my door was open. Hallway light was on. And I can't remember which one of my parents, but either mom or dad ran up the stairs to go get something, towels. They were going to get towels for the dog to sleep on because the dog was acting weird all day long. And they went upstairs, and I started crying. And whoever it was came back down the stairs, went back into their bedroom, and about 5 minutes later came out of the bedroom and came over to my room and said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Because Smokey died." And when whichever parent had gone up to the stairs, when they came down, Smokey was already dead.
Mm-hmm.
So without anybody telling me, I knew my dog was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first experience. The second experience was when I was 8 and my mother died. And I sat there in bed that night after her funeral, and I just kept saying it out loud. I just wanted to see her one more time. And so she showed up and scared the shit out of me, because when you're a little kid and 8 years old, you really don't expect your dead mother to show up at the foot of the bed in her pink sparkly dress that she was buried in. And I made the mistake of telling the pastor that it was okay, because he asked me how I was doing. You know, he was out at the house and asked me how I was doing, and they would check in on us. And I said, "Oh, I'm fine. Mom came to see me." Not a thing you say to a pastor.
Yeah, no.
And so,
especially back then.
Yeah, this would have been 1978. Not a good thing to say to a pastor. So I learned to. I don't see anything. Nothing's there. Even if I thought I saw something, nothing is there. You tell yourself nothing is there because you believe if you see something, you're bad.
Damn, you and I can relate on that, because I started seeing stuff when I was 3 years old. You know, I saw my grandfather.
It's literally what it is you're told that if you're seeing something, there's something wrong with you, so you shut it down because you're told you're going to go to hell. Well, now I don't even believe in hell, so you go there. Your hell,
all right, see you later. Bye.
You know what? It's their hell. They can live in it. I have no intentions of going to any hell. I don't believe there is a hell. When I was 16, I was at my friend Wendy's house. We were down in Wendy's bedroom doing what 16-year-old girls do, playing with a Ouija board. Because
every typical 16-year-old girl out there.
Go back to our the one episode.
Especially during the 70s and 80s and even the 60s, because of when Parker Brothers came out with the Ouija board. But you got to remember something, too. All we had for video games was freaking Atari. So it's not like we had all these other games and stuff.
Wow, there's the arcade.
We played with a Ouija board. And the first time we played with the Ouija board, you know, we did what all little 16-year-old girls do. Lit candles, and we turned off the lights and played with the Ouija board. And the spirit we were talking to said, "I don't like the lights out. I want the lights on. I was murdered in a basement. I don't want to see this dark." And somebody got up to go and turn on the lights. And before they ever got there, the lights were turned on and the candles were blown out. Not by any of us. I also spoke with my brother, who I never met. He had died before I was ever born. And I spoke with my mother. And we learned immediately, even though there was nothing. There was nothing to teach us back then. The only thing that was available about Ouija boards was a book by, I think his last name is, is it Stoker Hunt? I think his name is Stoker Hunt. And it's Ouija, the Most Dangerous Game. Okay. And it tells you, you know, you're going to get possessed and all this and everything else.
That was a huge push of the church and everything like that. Like, that was the whole divination tools or the work of the devil and all that stuff.
His book was, like, at that time, the only thing available in the Zion Library. So we reached out
Every
to
shelf
Waukegan.
is empty.
Yeah,
all filled with his.
That one. Well, as far as occult items, it was only about, this is going to kill you if you touch this. So we started branching out into the Waukegan Library and the Gurnee Library. And there was no internet back in 1986. There was no internet, so there was no Google, there was no Yahoo, there was no nothing. So we had to get out and do physical research. So we did research at other libraries and eventually found out about spiritualism. And after spiritualism, we found out that there was this thing called Wicca. And back in the 80s, that's all you could find. That's literally it. There was spiritualism, and then there was this thing called Wicca. And we learned a little bit about those things and studied. I've been studying ever since, basically. I've studied different pathways. I am not Wiccan. No offense to Wiccans, but I'm not Wiccan.
Can you explain for people that are listening that might not know what the difference is between being pagan, being Wiccan?
Wicca is a form of paganism. Paganism is the umbrella like Christianity. Christianity is the umbrella term. Lutheran, Protestant, even Catholics. Yes, you're Christian. You believe in Jesus Christ, because you'll often hear Catholics saying they're not Christian. Yes, you are.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
If you believe in Christ, you are Christian. Catholicism is a form of Christianity. Wicca is a form of paganism. Egyptology is a form of paganism. Druidry is a form of paganism. And there's other kinds of Wicca, too. There's being a green witch. There's being this. There's just all different types of thing, and they all fall under the umbrella of paganism. And the umbrella of paganism falls under, I don't believe in Jesus Christ. Is basically the original word pagan was, and they probably didn't pronounce it paganus. It was probably like paganus or something like that. Meant country dweller. And in every aspect of that word, I'm a country dweller. I raise chickens. I live in the woods. Okay, I don't technically live in the woods, but it's really close now. I believe in different deities for different things, but I believe that they're all the same one at the same time. So you have all these different little categories, and you pick where you want to fall, and you learn what you are good at, and you learn what you suck at, and that's how you go.
All right. Well, Kerri's actually a part of my spiritual awakening. You guys can go back to episode 1 where we were talking about our spiritual awakenings, but what I left out, because I was specifically waiting for Kerri to be on our show to tell the story, because it's one of my favorites.
It's one of mine, too.
And you all cracked me up because I don't totally remember this, but I know what happened.
So, when I started seeing things after my friend passed away, I confided in a friend who happens to be Kerri's daughter, Crystal. And I told Crystal, I was just like, hey, this is really weird, but, you know, I had this thing that I saw. I was at the show, I saw my dead grandmother, and then a little bit after that, you know, my friend passed away, and then all of a sudden, they started coming to me in a dream, and I'm like, am I going crazy? Is this grieving? What is this? So, unbeknownst to me, Crystal went and told her mom, hey, Lauren's seeing dead people. So then,
I have the shirt that says I see dead people.
do you?
Yes, I do.
I need one.
I need that.
One.
Yeah, same.
Like,
Tyler and I have matching shirts that say I see dead people.
Tyler's her son. But I didn't know that Crystal had told Kerri. So Crystal sends me a text message one day going, hey, my mom wants you to come over this weekend. Which, that's kind of not a normal text message you send someone, especially if you aren't close with their parent.
My mommy wants to see you.
Yeah.
You in trouble?
Yeah, so that was what I immediately thought. It was just like, oh shit, I did something wrong. What did I do? So, leading up to when I got there, I was like just combing through the files of like, what could I have done or what could I have said that like pissed somebody off or offended somebody. So I was just like, okay. But I show up and Crystal was like doing her homework and she's like, oh, mom's busy right now. And I was just like, oh, so I actually am seeing your mom. I'm not here to hang out with you. So now I have 2 red flags. And I'm so uncomfortable right now. But then all of a sudden, Crystal gets up and disappears. And I'm really in hot water. Like, my collar's, like, it's just really hot. Like, I'm just freaking out. So then, to top it off, Crystal comes out of what I now know was Kerri's bedroom and goes, Mom wants me to take you to the ritual room. Follow me into the basement.
Dead.
Sounds like a Dateline episode.
That's exactly what I thought it was going to turn out to be.
Did Chris Hansen walk in?
That's exactly what I thought this was going to turn out to be.
And it's so weird though, because when you tell it, then I see it from your side.
Yeah.
But before then, no, totally didn't see it from your side at all.
Yeah. So I'm just like, okay. And thinking in my head, yes, my mom knows I'm here. Yes, I have a curfew, so I'm not home by that point. You know, it'll raise some alarm in people. You know. And then I'm going into the basement, and the whole time I'm like, you know, Crystal, if I ever pissed you off in any way, I just want you to know I really value our friendship. You know, you're one of my closest friends. And really trying to lay on the affection here as we're getting to this quote-unquote ritual room, right?
My mom needs you to get into the hole and put the lotion on your skin.
Essentially what this
or
is
it gets the hose again.
Yeah. So I'm sweating, I'm shaking, and she takes me into this room. And now I'm like, well, this doesn't look too bad. This is really nice, you know. The walls are nicely painted. There's good tile. There's a table in the middle. Oh, my God, that's where I'm going to be sacrificed.
It wasn't that big of a table.
To an 18-year-old, a sacrificial table looks a lot bigger, even if it's small. A sacrificial table's a sacrificial table.
It was round.
But I don't care. I didn't know any of this
It was
stuff
a
back then.
poker table.
Sparkles.
It had glitter on it.
You're going to have a glittery death. It's
Yeah.
okay.
What does a sacrificial table look like?
Wait, hold on. That's some more
I
important.
don't know, but I don't think it looks round and sparkly
I
blue
mean,
and stuff.
if you sacrifice something, like anything that you sacrifice something over is a sacrificial table. Like, that's just, it could be a play
Did you
school
see
table.
blood on
We
that?
do that on the kitchen counter, not on the ritual room pretty tables that I had to stand down and make all pretty all by myself.
18-year-old Lauren didn't know, and in case you guys haven't noticed by episode 8, I'm a fucking dramatic person.
No!
I'm highly imaginative, and I've seen a lot of horror movies.
It takes a lot of Clorox to clean up blood.
It was too much effort otherwise.
Too much effort.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so I'm standing there, and I'm really laying it on thick, like, Crystal, I really love you. Crystal, this is great friendship. Gals being pals. Awesome times. She opens up a closet, and she starts pulling out all these knickknacks, and I'm just like, this is it. This is how I go. She pulls out
Knickknacks
a rack.
from the closet.
Here lies Lauren.
Yeah.
She died of knickknacks.
Under the knickknacks.
Yeah. And I thought they were keychains at the time, because like I said, I didn't know anything then.
Death
like
by
I know
keychain.
now. So she pulls out these keychains, and she goes, Mom says you need to pick one. I'm like,
Keychain.
Okay. I'll pick this really cool, weird keychain. It's kind of long, but I'll make it work. It's fine. So I pick one, and it's, you know, it's long, it's dangly, it's got a thing on the end. So I'm just like, cool, thanks. Like, this is great keychain. I will cherish it for the rest of my life, however long that is. So, and by the way, Chris is very nonchalant about this. Like, yeah, you got to do this. Yeah, I got to take you to the ritual room, and I got to do this. Meanwhile, I'm imagining my death. And she's like, okay, that's it. So then we turn around, and we get to go back up to where the stairs are, and there's fucking Kerri. Standing at the top of the stairs.
I highly doubt at the time I was fucking.
Top of the stairs. Her hair is like this massive curly mane.
It always is.
And the best thing that I can akin this to is
The perm.
Hagrid. Like, this was my Harry Potter meets Hagrid moment. She's standing at the top of the stairs. She's got, I don't know if you were wearing a caftan or a nightgown or something, but it was long and it was billowy.
Probably.
And you have another really long keychain in your hand. And
You
you're
will
looking
get strangled
down at
by
me.
this.
And she's looking down at me, and my dumbass alpha goes, oh, she's got a really long keychain too. Cool.
I'm going to look at keychains so weird from the rest of my life. Those sinister keychains.
Yes. And
Narrator, but they weren't keychains.
without even a pause, she's looking down from the very top of the stairs, and we're down at the very bottom, and she goes, you're a clairvoyant, Lauren. And the keychain is doing a thing. It's not just, you know, here's my keychain. The keychain is doing this little dancey thing. And she then goes to tell me that what I grabbed was a pendulum. And the pendulum is going to help me develop my gifts and my abilities, and this is how it works. I'm still shitting myself, so I'm just like, really, really neat. This is great. I gotta go.
Still trying to figure out how to get her keys out of here.
But there's no real ring. But that was like essentially my first encounter with being like, hey, this is what I have happening. So thanks, Kerri.
I remember bits and pieces of that. I do not remember being all Hagrid, but
Yes. Hair. Massive. Long,
I say
billowy,
that. It's
whatever.
like, where's my hair now? How big is my hair? It was a little bit longer than this then.
Very curly. It was also summer, too, so humidity. Yeah. So it was a good time. And then slowly from that moment on, you know, I kind of went my own way and did things. But whenever I'd have questions, I'd usually end up messaging Crystal, and then Crystal will immediately go, have you messaged my mom?
His mom.
Have you talked to mom about this? Ask my mom. So
Can I just say, Kerri, the first time that I met you, I wasn't sure what the fuck to expect.
I know, same. I came into Samhain last year, and I was just like, okay.
How bad did you scare these people?
Well, no, like I'm trying to think. Because
she'll come over and stand at the top of the stairs and look at Hagrid.
you have to realize too that before
I want to point something out. First of all, I am only 5'4".
But when you're standing at the tippy top of the big long
holding a long chain in your hand.
Yeah, a really fancy keychain.
I am 5'4".
I'm trying to remember, when did I meet Kerri for the first time? Because it wasn't Samhain, but
No,
you dragged me along for something.
You came over for it was either Imbolc or it wasn't Samhain and it wasn't Beltane. It was one in between. So
Ostara?
Like, I remember going into a room with a bunch of people, and you had this room, like, you had, like, paper charm things or other charm things in that room.
The stars that hang from the ceiling?
It may have
yes.
been Ostara. It may have been Ostara. Because
they're actually
That was
plastic.
my first time ever, like, meeting you and meeting a handful of people, I think even Crystal, and then it was like...
Yeah.
And then you're handing out these, like, paper for ritual. And you're like, all right, everyone, we're going to say this. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but okay. I got dragged to this.
I will admit, I fully forget and don't think about when new people come what they must be
thinking,
experiencing. Because I used to worry about it. I did. We would have new people come like all the time, and I would worry and I would like freak out and it's like, oh, what if they don't? You know what? If they don't like it, go somewhere else. It's that simple. And I used to worry about it, like, oh, we got to make it perfect for everybody. No, I don't. I don't have to make it perfect for anybody. If they don't like it, they can go somewhere else. And I've gotten so stuck in that because I mean, really, that's what it is. If it's not for you, it's not for you. Don't stay.
Yeah.
If you want it, we let people come and observe because it's a great way to learn. It's a great way to learn if it's something you're interested in. If you come to one of our rituals and you get freaked out, you have no right to be messing around because we are very normal. We really are. When it comes to ritual, we are very opening, but we're also very unscary.
Family friendly.
We're very family friendly because we have families, and that's been a big thing for at least 15 years now, where it's like, okay, once I started bringing my kids in, we're going to family friendly. I don't mean I don't swear because I swear in front of them all the time anyway, but it does mean that certain things are toned down.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I started bringing in my kids, then we had Carol and Rory, who have been with us for over a decade. They have now 4 kids, and one of their first rituals, we celebrated one of their children's 2nd birthdays. So I mean, they've been with us for a decade, and we have kids. We just have kids now. My kids have kids, so we keep it friendly. But coming from my background and the way things were when I was growing up, if your parents were Christian, they raised you to be Christian.
Yeah.
I was making a break from that. And instead of forcing something on my kids, because that's what I felt like it had been forced on me. Even when I said, I don't buy this crap, they said, we don't care. That means you need it more. And I used to, my parents would give me their car and tell me to go to church. I was supposed to go to Sunday school. I was supposed to go to church. And I was supposed to bring home the program from church to prove I had gone to church. So I would go to Sunday school, and I would pick up my friends that also went to Sunday school but lived in different towns, so I never got to see them in school. I'd only see them on Sundays, and we would go and joyride. And then when it was time for church, we would sneak back to the church, and we would pick up the bulletin to prove that we had been there. And then we'd go joyride some more. And then I would drop them off. With my own kids, I didn't want to force them into any one thing. When they went to visit my parents for the summer, my parents would take them to church. I didn't have a problem with that. Kids loved it. They loved Sunday school. When you're a little tiny kid.
Oh, yeah.
And they were little tiny kids at the time, they loved Sunday school. Every little kid does. You get to see people. You get to make crafts. It's a great time. It's not like you're going in there and they're beating you and telling you to sit still. Back in the 70s, They did. Back in the 70s, if we tried to move around during church, you would get whacked with a paddle and told to sit still and not say anything. So here I am, this little kid, being told to shut up, sit down, and pay attention to a guy I don't want to hear anyway, when I'm the child that wants to be at home barefoot and running through the field of dandelions. They should have known. As far as I'm concerned, it's their fault for not seeing it first. They should have been able to look at me and say, no, she ain't going to do well in church. They didn't. They suffered. So I didn't force it on my kids. And I let them join when they wanted to join rituals. And I did have some books for them as kids that I let them work through and do things, but it was never forced. Never, ever forced. This is your spirituality. Nobody else can tell you what that is.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I had the same similar, like, raising kind of thing. Like, my grandmother was very determined. Like, she's very Catholic, all of that kind of stuff. And so she made it adamant that, like, for my parents, she's like, your kids are going to Catholic school. And for me, Catholic school in Montini was you had a Wednesday Mass, you had a Friday Mass, and then we also went to church on Sunday. So I went to Mass 3 times a friggin' week.
Yep.
And it got so ingrained in me that, like you said, as Sunday school and everything else, you're like, oh, this is fun. And then I was like, I think I want to be a priest.
Thank the goddess he's not.
But, you know, as I got older and I experienced different things, especially when being a kid and seeing spirits and shit like that, and then the church is like, it's evil. So you get the spirit.
It's brainwashing.
Yeah,
it's literally a form of brainwashing. When you have an experience and somebody else tells you it's wrong, that is brainwashing. It doesn't matter what the experience is. They are telling you that what you believe is real is not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wrong. It is just wrong. So I never did it to my kids.
Yeah.
I would let them make their own choices, and now some of them think they know more than they do, and that's their problem. They'll figure it out.
What age would you say is like a good age to maybe start letting them experiment with stuff?
Well, I'm going to say my daughter has raised my granddaughters more or less to be pagan, which nowadays is far more acceptable. But at the same time, I mean, I think they should probably get an education all around. When you're real young, you don't understand any of it. You really don't. Probably around 13. I see nothing wrong with raising children Christian. I see nothing wrong with raising children pagan until it comes to the point where it's forced. And I believe, and you know, you're going to get it with pagan families, you're going to find them being more open to letting kids learn about Christianity than you're going to find Christian people who are open to their children learning about paganism.
Yeah.
Preach it.
Well, that's because the church, you know, like the church, and I haven't been to church in in a while, but I know back when I was going, it was more dominant back in the 70s, 80s, and things like that with the devil, the devil, the devil. But even as I was growing up in the 90s with all of that, it was still a very much like every other sermon had some sort of tie to the devil and kind of thing. So that fear is very much into this fear-driven thing that, like, outside the church, the devil is everywhere.
Is fear-driven.
Yeah.
Christianity is completely fear-driven, particularly when you look at the Old Testament.
Yeah.
So we had this old god who was mean and nasty and would
smite you.
Would spite you, would smite you down. Strike lightning. And then
feel the lightning. Ka-chow!
Exactly. And then the New Testament, they said, we got to make him loving and kind. So which is he? Which is your God? Because I'll tell you what, my gods, they're both. I got gods that are loving and kind. And if you screw with them, they will smite you down.
Get kicked in the nutsack.
Yeah, but we went with Christianity. It went from he's kind of tough, and then the excuse was, well, it's tough love. He's a father. He has to make sure that his kids are doing right. And if that means you spare the rod and spoil the child, that means you beat the kid with a stick so they don't turn out bad. That's what they believed. That's a thing that came out of the Bible. Spare the rod, spoil the child meant you beat your kids. That's what it means, is you beat your kids. And that's what they taught in church, was you beat your kids if they do the wrong thing. It's not you sit them down and say, why did you say that to so-and-so about their nose being big? No. You took a switch or a belt or whatever, and you whooped them until they bled or bruised or whatever so they didn't do it again. That's what we all grew up with in the 70s and the 60s and the 50s and the 40s and the 30s and the 20s and the 10s and the 1800s and the 1700s. And then
so on and so on and so on.
I mean, for hundreds of years, when you didn't do what your parents wanted you to do, you got beat because the Bible said, beat your kid. And nowadays, people are like, what? You want me to beat my kid because they did something wrong? And that is a big part, too, of what the church is declining. The Christian church is declining all over the world. I mean, look at the nuns. You realize there's a massive nun shortage?
I have not looked in. I've not typed into Google. How many nuns are here?
Massive nun shortage. You gotta get working,
Cassidy.
In the world, particularly in the United States, because women don't want to sign their lives over to God anymore. They don't want to give everything up and be like, okay, yes, I'm marrying Jesus.
I'm going to start bringing that up in conversation now. It's like when there's that dead silence. So how about that nun shortage?
Instead of how about them cubs?
Yeah, how about that nun shortage?
We have a population that is growing. We have more people every year than the year before. And yet the Christian church is losing numbers like mad. In all forms of Christianity, they are losing numbers, even though the population is growing. And a lot of it is because of these old rules that people are just like, are you crazy? Well, that's what they thought. My biggest problem with the Bible, and I'll tell you what, working in a bookstore, you would not believe how often this happens. Somebody comes in and they want to buy a Bible. No problem. You take them to the Bible section and you start showing them all the different Bibles you have. And you know what they say? I want the original one. Which is the original one? Well, the original Bible is stored in a vault in the Vatican because it's on these things called scrolls and is written in a language we no longer have.
We can order it for you, though.
Yeah, would you like me to order that? But people who don't
Let me check the back room.
There is an extremely large number of people in this country who thinks the Bible was written as one book.
Yeah.
In English.
Yeah, no.
Don't forget all the stuff that they omitted, and then all the stuff that the Vatican's like, we're going to keep this. Never mind. This isn't canon anymore.
Well, it's like the Dead Sea Scrolls.
It was written in English.
Yeah. That's unfortunate because they don't understand history and they don't understand where it actually originated.
Because they're not taught that. Because they are taught. The number one thing you are taught about the Bible is you do not doubt the Word of God.
Yep.
No questioning.
Yeah, Catholic Church didn't like me because I was a curious little boy, and everything I was experiencing at that time, I was like, but that was like my constant thing in class, raising my hand. But and they're like, shut up, Austin.
Yeah, she got kicked out of Sunday school in the Southern Baptist Church for saying, but who did Adam and Eve's boys have babies with? Their sisters. So, I mean, literally, if you go by the Bible, it teaches incest is the way to go.
Incest is best.
No, it's not Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Keep it in the family.
Alabama.
So Samhain, who wants to get into the history of that? After just getting into the history of Christianity and the Bible and
incest
and all of that. If you stuck with us this long, here we go. Here's the actual podcast.
People have to think about the fact that this is how we talk, like in general, like as a group. This is we jump all over the place.
Well, something to note too. If you look back at each of our individual spiritual awakenings, a lot of it has to do with either seeing someone who is no longer living, so someone who has passed, recently deceased, or not so recently deceased, coming through and saying, hey, I'm here, when we, as we all grew up being like, no, once you're dead, you're gone. That's it. You're ex-living. You're not there.
Ex-living.
You're
I like that one.
in the ground, and
you are living disabled.
Get that on a T-shirt.
That's good.
Yes.
I see living disabled people.
Like what?
What is Samhain?
You mean what is Samhain?
Oh, I thought it would be me.
That's probably the best place to start would be.
Yeah, how to actually pronounce
what
it.
What the heck is Samhain?
Yeah.
Samhain is what they call Samhain on Supernatural and the Halloween movies.
Yeah.
And the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Did they really do it on there?
Yeah,
too?
they did.
I didn't remember that.
You
but
probably blocked it out.
I probably did.
We were watching
It's a sore subject.
I was loving the show. I'm like, this is fucking great. Every time Aunt Z says praise Satan, a little part of me just lights up. And then it comes to the episode, I'm like, ooh, yeah, we're getting there. And then
Samhain.
I don't understand why, though, they did that, because they had somebody that was supposed to be on set to correct those types of things.
Yes, and they delved into a lot, like Lupercalia. They brought even like the most nichest things, and they brought it forward in the show, and we're like, we're gonna use this. But they said that, and I was just like, I asked Austin, I made him pause it.
I think you messaged us. I
screamed. I had to I was laying down, but I had to count to 10 before I let him hit play again. Like, I was pissed. I was so mad.
Let's go back to the fact that she did say she's extremely dramatic.
It's surprising, though, that in this day and age, especially when you're claiming you're doing a show with a Wiccan on set to make sure everything goes right, and you still say, Samhain.
Yeah, I don't think it's talked about enough. I don't think it's talked about enough with the pronunciations of things. Like, there's people out there claiming to have been practicing for years, and they still go, Samhain is coming up, and so... It is an old, is it Gaelic? Gaelic word. I mean, obviously there's different pronunciations, especially from that general area. You've got Scotland, you've got Welsh, you've got Irish, you've got all of that. But it is pronounced Samhain, or sometimes it makes a V sound, Salvin or Salvine, like.
Nothing with a Samhain. Those are very American sounds.
Yes.
We have that nasally, nasty, long A sound that other countries simply do not have.
Yeah.
That Samhain, and we put it in there twice. Yeah. It's
we had discussed this earlier before we started recording, but a lot of the stuff when you dive into these old practices, they originate in other areas of the world. Very specifically, this one here, it comes from, like I said, Northern Europe, where you've got the Gaelic, Gaelga, like all of that stuff. And that specific language,
the Celts.
yes, they are very, when it comes to observing their language, it's more about the sounds made versus we who are American, we pronounce every consonant that's in a word. The Celts did not. It was just, here's the sound. I don't know how to spell that, so we're just going to add a bunch of letters and
Let's add some D's and some H's, like
some
that are
phlegm
silent
somewhere in there, and
like,
hope
you
for the
know.
best. Like, so the pronunciation. See, now I'm even saying the pronunciation. Other than Halloween, it is Samhain.
So where did it start from? Like, I know you said it started back in like Celtic, Gaelic tradition. Do we have like a year or anything like that?
From what I know, it's like it could be up to 5,000 years ago, from what I've learned. There's not like a specific date.
That's old.
Yeah.
Yes, it is old.
And there's a lot of cultures that have.
It began really after people started switching. First, you had your hunter-gatherers, and they traveled, and they were nomads. Once you became an agrarian society, then the other groups that were around you would come and get together for ritual purposes, basically. What we call Lugnazid, Lamas, whatever you want to call it, was a time when people would do almost like a county fair type of thing, and they would do their contracts for the next year and leases and things like that. Once we stopped moving around, we started staying in one location, and once you start staying in one location, you start building traditions. And one of those traditions ended up becoming Samhain, which means summer's end.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And not only does it mean summer's end, it's the third harvest, which the third harvest is also known as a blood harvest. When you have animals that you raise and you're going into winter, you know there's a chance you're not going to be able to feed them all. So you eliminate what you cannot feed. And that also becomes food. So if I have 15 cows and I know I've only got enough food to feed 10 of them throughout the winter, I got to get rid of 5 cows. So I have to slaughter them. That blood from slaughtering those animals is part of the reason why we get the name the blood moon. Sometimes in October we call it the blood moon because there's blood spilled everywhere. And it is the third harvest of meat. So we are cutting down our flock to make sure that we can get through the winter with them. And it also gave food to help get through the winter too. So it meant a lot of different things. It was the end of the year because when winter came, you didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You hid. You know your place that you lived. Your animals were probably in it with you. Stinky.
Yeah, your
Snuggling a sheep.
Stinky, stanky, stunk.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, that's how people lived back then. So it was the end of the year. It was the third harvest. It was the end of summer. And then it was a time for rest. And you would rest over the winter, knowing that when spring comes along, you're going to be hard at work again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it was during that time that you thought less about harvesting and taking care of your animals. It was more mortality, like making it through.
Yes, very
the
much.
winter.
Very much about planning to make it through.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what were some of the traditions during Samhain? Like you talked about like they realized, okay, during winter we can't feed all this cattle or livestock, so they would slaughter what they needed, save the meat, things like that. But to celebrate the end of summer and the beginning of winter, what were some of the traditions tied to it?
We have no idea.
No idea? Okay.
When you can go back to a certain point, and then before that, we have no idea. We go with what we think. We know that in Ireland, eventually, was the carving of the turnips. which is where the jack-o'-lanterns, the American version of
Yeah.
jack-o'-lanterns, is from turnips. And they would carve turnips to scare away the spirits who would come through when the veil was thin.
Mm-hmm.
So they developed, at some point, a fear of the dead and those spirits. Whereas once upon a time, they always communed with those ancestors, and those ancestors would help you through. At some point, things switched, and we taught ourselves to be afraid of it. Masks, same thing. You know why we wear masks on Halloween? To scare away spirits. Our Halloween comes from Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
When the Irish came here, they brought a lot of their traditions, and then we bastardized everything because that's what we do in America.
Sounds right.
Yeah, accurate. Checks out. Yeah. Yeah. The one thing that I thought was kind of funny when I was reading, instead of trick or treat, it was called trick or survive.
Yes.
Essentially. Yeah, because they would wear the masks to scare off any like spirits or
like disguise themselves so that they could stay hidden, things like that. And I know, like you said, trick or treat or what was it? Trick and survive.
Yeah.
Trick or survive.
I know, like part of it was like, from what I was seeing is that like they would offer, food, drink to the like spirits to like protect them as well as their livestock that they didn't have to slaughter and stuff like that to get through the winter. But I also heard like there was a mumming in like guising, which was like basically people in costume going to house to be like, give me food.
It's we reenact things.
Yeah.
And it's the highest form of flattery is to imitate. So that's what they started doing is like if the spirits are supposed to be going door to door, then let's us go to door and we'll do it for them. And it becomes.
I heard you got some steak. Throw that in my sack.
I'm saying back then in those days, nobody got any of that nasty ass bazooka bubble gum.
No. I mean, no razor blades in the apples and all that stuff. Well, a lot of cultures during this time, too, celebrate communing with the other side. I mean, you've got Dia de los Muertos, you've got All Souls Day, you've got all of them, and they all kind of happen all during the same time.
Because that is when the veil thins.
So why is the veil the thinnest during this period of time?
No clue. Absolutely no clue. No, honestly, I
want to know who decided that. Like, who's like, I'm feeling it over here.
I don't know that anybody decided it or if it's just because people started seeing more at that time. There must be, at some point, there must have been.
And if you just kind of think about it, too, Samhain marks, the last day of summer, but also the first day of winter. That's when the dark months come.
Yes, it's the dark half of the year.
As we've brought up in previous episodes, when you talk about symbolism, light is safe. Light is good. Light is, you want light. Darkness is always almost equated to bad, to
it is
nasty. And so when the dark months came, it's like, well, how are we going to survive these dark months? What are you going to do through the dark months? You're surviving during the dark months. You're not doing that during summer.
Yeah.
You're doing
it's more associated with death because more people die then. I mean, even now today, you'll see more people drop dead in February and March when winter is ending because it's been rough on them, especially old people. A lot of old people die in March.
Yeah.
And it's because it's too much. Even with all the stuff that we have, sure, now we don't have to go outside when it's cold. If we don't, if we're old and we live in a nursing home or a retirement center or something, we don't have to go outside. People do it for us. But we stay in. And we don't associate with other people as much. And we don't talk to other people as much. And we are shutting ourselves off from specifically, really, a natural environment.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're not around a natural environment that has natural energy and you're stuck in a place that is concrete, what energy are you getting? You're not. You're stuck in this place all the time with concrete. Concrete does not give off a great vibe.
What, you never hugged a slab of concrete and been like, ooh, baby, I'm feeling something cold.
We've done it to ourselves. We separated ourselves from nature.
Yeah.
And whereas before we would embrace the dark because it was also a time of rest, we hide from it now. We hide from it now. That sounded like a fart.
Yeah,
it was a chair.
Someone slid a chair up in the upper levels of the house.
I guess you don't agree.
I feel like that.
Or it was a phantom fart. We're talking about scary stuff, so phantom farts.
Oh, my God.
They happen.
Are you Googling phantom farts now?
No.
Okay.
No, I just wanted to go back to the traditions of Samhain because there was one thing that I found very interesting. During this time, they would gather all the firewood because they would have this ceremony within the town where they would extinguish all the fires in all the households and light the one fire. And then when the celebration was over, they would take a stick.
That fire, yes.
Yeah, they would take the stick and they would relight each and every hearth in the community.
There's traditions like that associated with Yule as well. And it's that with Yule, you would use the leftover log from the year before. You don't burn the whole thing out, and you would use that to rekindle the new fire when the light returns. But that was a big thing that, yes, they did. And it was a good way to, the past is behind, this is all new, let's start fresh.
Yeah. Kind of like a new year.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why it's considered the witch's new year. So, yeah.
So Kerri, you had the Gathering Grove. What are some of the things that you guys do there? And I asked this, and I sound I sound so informational because I've attended.
Yeah,
I know, but the way you said it, I'm gonna be like, oh, you strip naked and run around in the woods, but we don't.
Well, no.
Well, I do, but no. I mean, I don't. No, I keep saying I'm going to. It's too cold right now.
But just kind of like, what are some of the? Because you write a majority of the rituals that you guys do there, and you set everything up. So what?
Well, this year for Samhain. This year we're doing something very different. Normally we used to do a regular ritual with what we call fire mail at the beginning, and I'll explain fire mail in a minute. For the past couple of years, we've done things a little bit different where we did stations, where each station has something different that you can work on, whether we had different altars. One was for our dearly departed, which is people we knew who have passed on. One was for our ancestors, which was for family that we did not know. But if it wasn't for those people, we wouldn't be here. We had different, like a tarot card station. We had a resolution station. We've had different stones to work with. We've had oils to work with. We've had pendulums to work with. And you would do all these different things. This year, we're going to do things a little bit different.
Thanks, COVID.
Thanks to COVID, yeah. But, COVID sucks. It really does. But if you're, and I'm, you guys know, I'm freaking high risk. I'm an ex-cancer patient. Technically, I'm still a cancer patient because once a cancer patient, always a cancer patient. Somebody should have warned me about that before I got cancer. That would have been nice to know. I wouldn't have signed up. You're like, no, I don't want this. But where was I at? I just totally lost my train of thought. Okay, this year, COVID. Yes. So we are going to do I wanted to do a huge thing and invite outside people, but we're not going to invite outside people. So y'all, sorry. We just get to have fun.
Hell yeah, we do.
We're going to start.
Boo-boo.
That's right. We're going to start with a haunted trail ride for the children that us adults will be putting on for the kids. And people will be masked, and they will go for a ride in a little cart with straw and be cute and get scared and pee their pants and, that good stuff. And then after that, we have an amazing race for y'all where I'm going to make you run around my backyard and find things and do things, and I get to laugh. And after that, we'll have a drive-in movie on the garage. And I think then we'll have you and Crystal do your things instead, so that I'm changing things.
Okay.
So you're going to teach about sigils.
Yep. Sigil work and how to create your own sigils.
And Crystal is doing what is it? It's going to be similar to a gree bag, but not quite the same
Kind of
thing.
like what
Is
we
it
did
a
last
juju
year.
bag?
Kind of like that. What'd you say?
That's a juju bag?
I don't know if she called it juju. I don't think she called it. I don't remember.
Mojo bag?
Maybe it is a mojo. I can't remember what she called it now.
Juju.
Mojo
That's
Jojo?
the thing. I cannot remember specifically what she was calling it, but they're all very similar. After that, we're going to go dance under the moon for a while, and then we're going to have a ritual where we call in 8 different deities and tell them to give us their dead. Yeah, that's about it. So
Yeah. A casual Saturday.
It's the usual Saturday night.
It's gonna be one hell of a busy Saturday. When does this start?
Yeah, I don't think I've left a Samhain event at the Gathering Grove without being in tears at least one point in the night. So it's
well,
heavy
and
stuff.
that's fire mail.
Fire mail.
So fire mail is something that we started quite a long time ago, and it has evolved a little bit over the years where we use a procession, and doing the procession really, I think, helps get people into the more of a serious frame of mind, because it gets us away from each other for a few minutes. When you're walking by yourself, you're not laughing with your friends.
Yeah.
So we take a moment and each walk out towards the fire, and we have letters that people either write around the fire or bring with them to our not just loved lost ones, but it can be to an ancestor. It can be to other things too, though. Say you quit smoking. You could write a goodbye letter to freaking cigarettes. You can write a goodbye to whatever you want to. I'm not pointing out you.
Goodbye, vape.
Goodbye. Goodbye, sweet vape.
Goodbye, vodka.
Oh,
It's
my
been
vape.
real.
No.
Never.
Exactly. So we write the letters and we send them through fire mail. And what that means is we put them in a bonfire and let them go up in flames. Literally is what that means. But that is sending them to where they need to go. And then after that, we sit and meditate and we all bawl. And
Like we play basketball?
no, we all cry. We all seriously.
It's not that type
One
of
of
ball.
and
Play
oddly,
ball, baseball,
the song that does it the most and that we do our meditation to is
Into the West.
Annie
Lennox.
great.
Lord of the Rings.
Yes, it is Into the West, and it's one of my funeral songs. I literally have the list of music to play at my funeral, and that is one of them. And when you really listen to the words, I mean, that's what the song is about. It's literally about dying. I got news for you. When he was getting on that boat, he wasn't going to another place. When Frodo left, Frodo was going to another dimension, more or less. He was going into the West, and that was a symbolism for death. They're going to the underworld, to the other world. It's like the Tuatha De Danann. When it was time for them to go, they went underworld. They live in the fairy mounds, and they're kind of that whole thing in what's the damn show now? Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
It's a symbolism
Yeah.
for that. It's all, my brain loves to fart. That's that sound earlier.
You're like, Frodo,
not
my
a
theme
chair.
song.
It wasn't a chair stairs. It was my brain.
It was Carrie's brain.
It does it a lot.
Yeah, it's a really symbolic song.
It is, and it is about dying and.
Can I send myself into the fire mail?
You can write yourself a letter, but do not throw yourself
Oh,
into the
damn
fire.
it. I was gonna get whee!
We've had fire jumpers fall into the fire,
Oops.
and it's really kind of funny though when you're drunk and it's the Catholic that's doing it. But we had a Catholic come to Beltane who stripped, jumped the fire, and fell in. It's always the Catholics that get carried away. It's so funny. Every ritual we've had that people got really weird, it was the Catholics that were doing it. It's almost like they use it as
an excuse.
An excuse, really. Really, I'm serious. I'm with
see
the
the
pagans.
wheels
I get to
turning.
do all this weird stuff, and
I see the wheels turning in Austin's head. Like,
No, I don't have hops. I'm a white man, all right? And this white man can't jump.
Well, this was a woman, and she couldn't either.
You can do everything when you're drunk.
No.
Think you can do
No.
everything.
No,
There's a difference.
Even
You
when
think
I'm
you can
drunk,
do everything.
I'm still like, I know I can't do that. I'm not even going to try it.
Would you say there's any restrictions when you're writing fire mail? Is there anything you shouldn't do or anyone you shouldn't try to write to?
You're saying goodbye, so whatever you need to say goodbye to, why would that ever be a bad thing? We don't say goodbye to things that we need. We don't. We don't say goodbye to things that help us. We say goodbye to things that we need to put in our past, whether that is loved ones or not. I mean, you need closure, and people don't always get that. So it works in different ways. I mean, if you're pissed off at somebody, they don't have to be dead. They don't have to be dead. If you are so mad at somebody and you just want to put it all down, you put it all down and you put it in that fire and it's gone. It is no longer your anger. It is gone. You got rid of it. You gave it to the fire. Does that person ever need to know? No. If you wanted that person to know, you probably wouldn't be writing a letter and throwing it into a fire. You'd be screaming it in their face.
Yeah.
So it's for you to help you get past whatever it is you feel you need to get past, whether that is a relationship, whether that is a bad habit, a good habit, whatever it is, whatever you need to change or get rid of, you put into the fire. And we've done that for at least 15 years.
Dear Tequila, what the fuck?
Dear Tequila, every time I drink you, you have a damn worm in your bottle.
Oh.
And I don't understand why you want me to eat a worm. Jose Cuervo, you are a friend of mine.
but that's also very similar to like it's also Samhain is also considered like pagan New Year.
Yes.
So
Well, it's not considered pagan New Year.
well,
It's considered the witches' New Year.
the witch's New Year.
Now, there you go, too, is you got a lot of people. Pagan and being a witch are not the same thing.
Right.
They're very much not the same thing. Can you be pagan and a witch? Yes. Do you have to be pagan to be a witch? No. Do you have to be a witch to be pagan? No. They are two different things. Paganism is a spirituality. Witchcraft is not a spirituality. It is an art form. It is,
Literally witchcraft.
yeah, it is, in some ways, it's a science. But it's a science and an art form, but it is not a religion. It's not a spirituality. Can you use it as part of your spirituality? Yes. By itself, it is not. That is why when I had a conversation today with a woman who asked me, she says, this guy in this group, same guy I was having issues with, was saying that you can't be a Christian witch. And that used to be a big belief in paganism. There was no way you could be a Christian witch because witches said you couldn't be Christian, and Christians say you can't be a witch. Why? Who the fuck are they to tell me what I can and cannot do? The Bible says thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. That was not what it originally said. It originally said, thou shalt not suffer a poisoner to live. And some dude over in the Vatican's doing his little transcribing and says, I like witch better. And it became witch. And how much did that happen with other things? The Bible was not written by God. The Bible was written by men. And it was translated by men. And it was translated into different languages by men. And women weren't allowed to do that work.
Moral of the story, fuck the patriarchy.
It was men. So it literally says everything those people wanted it to say. Mm-hmm. If they didn't want it to say something, they took it out.
It's a long game.
It is. It really is. So you got people saying you can't do this, you can't do that. And, gee, I don't know. If I was Christian and I did witchcraft, I guess that would make me a Christian witch, wouldn't it? And I didn't blow up. I didn't get struck down by God. And nobody who's doing it has been. So why can't they? Because somebody said no. People tell you can't be different things at the same time, and you most certainly can. And I'll tell you what. 15 years ago, when I had my first Christian witch show up at Ritual, I kind of thought, okay, this is different. And then I realized it ain't my place to say. If they want to come to Ritual and they want to sing in their church choir at the same time, more power to them. They got that kind of time to do both. Okay, good. But it's not my place to say what anybody else believes.
Not that I want this whole episode to be about that, but using Christian deities and Christian forms in, like, calling for ritual and magic work, there's people who uniformly, like, they use different. So, like, some people will be like, I want to use Michael the Archangel, I want to use the goddess Isis, I want to use Pan, like, they'll pick a bunch of different things, and a lot of them are that way. So I've seen a lot of, there's even whole practices that use both Christian deities and the deities that are out there from other cultures. So
it's literally what voodoo is. Voodoo is a combination of, particularly when you get to New Orleans voodoo, it's a combination of Haitian voodoo mixed in with Catholicism. When you worship saints at the same time you're calling in, Papa Ligba, that's normal down there. And if you did something like that in other places of the country, they'd think you were crazy. Like, no, that's called voodoo. That's just called voodoo.
All right, so back with Fire Mill, it's one way that you can say goodbye to those who have passed, among other things, but that's one way of being able to communicate with your ancestors or past loved ones. See, there it was. There was the croak. There's other practices, too, that people do. They, like, for example, Dia de los Muertos. They go, they actually set up, like, a whole picnic kind of thing on the burial, whether it's is it a grave, a tomb?
Yeah.
They actually sit down and they have a feast with their ancestors.
Yes.
And, they bring in the new generation. They introduce them, like, this is the new generation. This was the old generation. This is where we are now. Like, we're going to have a big feast and we're going to talk about memories. And they do this yearly versus, we've, like, normally
it's just pound on doors now and say, give me candy.
Yeah, give me candy. There's nothing having to do with that. It's, you bury someone, you mourn them, and then you move on. Like, some people go and they visit the grave, but then it's not something that's regular. You don't regularly sit there and do things. It's, So having feasts with your ancestors is another way to.
I guess I kind of want to ask, like, Kerri, for someone who's not a part of something like, the Gathering Grove, like, what would you recommend for someone that wants to celebrate, like, Samhain just from their house? Like, what's some things that,
Dumb supper is one of the things that people do for, like, calling in the ancestors. And what that is you set a place for those who have passed. And you dish up their plate. And you sit their plate where they would normally have sat or where a special guest would sit. And you sit down and you eat with them and you keep your mouth shut. And, well, except, put food in.
Smack it against your cheeks.
So it's called a dumb supper because you eat it in silence. Dumb as in can't speak, not dumb as in you idiot. And it is a way to commune and honor them at the same time. Fire mail is always something people can do on their own. You don't even need a bonfire for it. You can write a letter and take it to your sink and use a lighter and burn it up right at your kitchen sink and just let it fall right in. And then, water it if you need to. Don't have the smoke detector go off.
Call the fire department, make a
Right.
whole party out of it.
Yeah, all that stuff.
And the firemen letters. Would you like to write a
While
letter?
we're
Exactly.
at it, do you have anything you need to let
I know
go
my
from this
apartment's on
past year?
fire.
Exactly.
My apartment's on fire, but before you put that out,
If you have anything
Here
you'd
you
like
go,
to
just
get rid
cast it in
of,
there.
just let us know. Those are real easy things to do, and anybody can do them. There's it's too hard. No, it's not. It's the easiest thing you can do. It's because it's things you normally do. You normally eat. Just do it without talking. You normally write letters to people, or you did once upon a time. We wrote letters to people, and we used to actually know what pen and paper were. It'd be kind of hard to do with email and just delete it, I guess. It's not quite the same
New phone,
thing.
who dis?
Yes, exactly.
why do you need to be quiet though? Like,
It's a sign of respect.
okay.
It's not only is it a sign of respect, but if they're trying to talk to you and you're talking, you're not going to hear them.
Okay, so it's a
So
way of
it's-
reflection.
It's reflection. It's respect. It's not something people normally do. You don't normally have a meal and not talk, especially if you're with other people.
That means no TV or no smartphone, right?
No, not during
No
that. No,
distractions.
it's no distractions. And you also, it gives you a chance to really focus on eating, and the fact that you are taking in this food, and say if it was meat, okay, say you're having pick a food. Any-
Salami.
Steak.
What did you say?
Salami.
Okay, you said salami. What did you say?
Steak.
Steak.
She goes with salami, deli meat. I'm
whole
like,
tube of salami right here
steak.
to honor my ancestors.
Well, I think most salami is beef salami, so they both come from a cow. That cow had a life. That cow no longer has a life.
That cow is now delicious.
That cow is now, I prefer my cows kind of bloody.
I like medium well.
I like my steak as
I like it
raw,
raw.
as you can. And I don't
I
even
like a
eat
hockey
steak anymore,
puck.
really. I hardly ever eat red meat anymore.
Yeah, I haven't
but when I did
had red
eat
meat in a
red
while.
meat, steak tartare was like my most favorite
So
thing in the world.
good.
Yeah.
I like mine hockey puck.
But
Yeah.
you think about it more, you focus on it more, and when you are eating, it sounds terrible, but when you are eating that cow,
You're eating life, or
you
once
are
was
eating-
life.
You are eating what was once life. And because that cow is now dead, you have life.
Or moo.
Yeah, it's what it is. It's a sacrifice that it has made. You thank it. I had a friend that she used to go every year on Samhain to her friend's farm, and she would pick out their cow to be slaughtered
Oh my God.
to go into the freezer for the next year of food. And she would spend time with each one.
The poor cows don't even know. They're just like, oh, someone's loving me. Someone's giving me some
No.
conversation.
It would have to be, oh, that
You're
bitch
gonna
is
die.
back.
Well, she
One of
she
yous
would
is
let
gonna
them,
go.
Yeah, she
Poor
would let
cow.
them know that she was there to find her food for the next year. She would talk to them, and it's kind of neat because I'll admit I've done it with chickens when we did our meat chickens. It's like, okay,
Who's gonna get plucked?
who's ready to go? Who's ready to help me survive? And they will volunteer. One of them is going to come up to you and be like, okay, it's my turn.
Did it raise its wing?
No, they just run up to you. Eat me. Yeah, okay.
Gobble, gobble.
Chickens aren't real smart sometimes.
Turkey,
but
turkey.
Yeah, I was like, that's turkey.
Yeah, turkeys gobble. That's not chicken. But, I mean, and that's how she did it. It was a very personal thing because she knew that she was going to be taking another life.
Oh.
So she would spend time with each of the animals, see if she would get a feel for, okay, I'm ready to sacrifice myself for you. And that's something else you can do. I mean, obviously, if you have a place that you can go, you're probably not going to walk into the supermarket and be like, which roll of ground beef?
Yeah.
Come here, cutlet. Come here.
I go to the deli. Can I see your tube of bologna, please? What?
Ma'am,
I need to
tubes
feel
of
it.
salami?
I need to feel this. They
Ma'am, I
hand it
need
to
you
me.
to stop
slap
fondling
it.
the meat.
That's right.
You're going to have to buy all of that.
But we're also very, very distant from our food.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
We're also very
Well, because
distant.
if most people went up to on a daily basis and had to go hug a cow and say, your nutrients
But
for
they
me.
used to.
Well, yeah, that was used to. Now today, like
You
people.
know, 150 years ago, you could not do any grocery shopping because there wasn't any grocery shopping to do. And we have become very separated from our food. And at the same time, we've become very separated from death. Partly because of the way we get our food. But at the same time, those things have been changing. The funeral industry has also come about. There didn't used to be a funeral industry. Funeral homes didn't exist. That's a new thing. When my dad, when he was a kid, his uncle was hit by a train. They didn't call 911. They didn't call the ambulance to come and pick up the body parts. The family had to go down to the track and find him and all of his pieces. That's what we used to do. When we needed food, we used to go out and kill it. And when somebody in our family died, when I say our family, I mean anybody's family, you used to take them into the room and you would lay them on whatever table it was and you would take off their clothes and you would wash their bodies and you would wash it with certain things because you were blessing it at the same time. You were getting them ready to go on to their next stop. And then people would come into the house and that body would be laying there for days. And now what happens? Somebody dies and we pick up the phone and we say, you have to come and get them out of here. And they come and they pick them up and they take them somewhere and they take everything out of the insides and they put other things in so that they don't rot and stink. And they sew their eyelids shut and they sew their mouth shut. And then they cake them in a ton of fucking makeup and they say, here's your beloved. Come and look out how pretty they are.
No, just burn me.
And it has
Give me a Viking funeral.
Yeah, exactly.
Looked into that. That's illegal in Illinois.
Removed ourselves from death, and the more we remove ourselves from death, the scarier it fucking becomes. We have made death far scarier than what it was considered 100 years ago. Because we don't deal with it. We pay other people to deal with it for us.
Just like I've heard a quote recently that like funerals are for the living. They're not
They
necessarily
are for the living.
For the dead.
They're 100% for the living because the dead don't damn well care.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to show grief. But you know what? When you have to take that body and you have to wash that body and you have to clothe that body, it's not so much about grief, it's about respect. And so we've gotten rid of dealing with death, which means we've gotten rid of looking at it. We've gotten rid of dealing with it. We've gotten rid of the fact that it's in our face. We have pushed death to the side and act like it doesn't exist. And like I said, we pay people to take care of it for us.
Well, too, we prolong it. So, like, that's just who we are. We do everything in our power. We spend all this money to try and push it further and further and further back. Which is not saying I'm like, okay, die tomorrow. But, like, we push it away.
And then
but
we say that doctors can't do any harm because that would be playing God. And yet they're already playing God. They're already playing God. Anytime a doctor does anything that saves somebody's life who was going to die without them, you're still playing God.
Science.
It is science. And science and magic really are kind of the same thing. You can't have one without the other. Because if you can sit there and say the fact that give me a scientific fact. Something cool. Volcanoes.
Mitochondria is a powerhouse of the cell.
Oh my god.
And that ain't fucking magic? Think about it.
It's true.
That has got to be some serious damn fucking magic. Because how does that work?
Right.
Isn't it crazy that this stuff works? That is magic. It doesn't mean that there's no explanation for it. I know he's over here dying because you said that, and it's just killing me because I'm going to keep on talking.
You didn't even blink either. It was just like
I knew it. I knew it was coming.
That was good.
One of us out of three of us.
Magic does not mean it does not have an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
And people seem to think that magic is things that happen that defy explanation. No. Magic has an explanation. We just don't always know what it is. The same with science. Just because we haven't discovered something with science does not mean it doesn't exist. It's like we've talked about the whole thing with energy. Energy cannot be destroyed. So why do people think that when we die, there's nothing more? I know I'm full of energy. Well, some days some days I'm dragging my ass. But if we have this thing inside of us that makes us coherent, that makes us able to speak, that makes us able to think, that makes us able to love, makes us able to hate, you cannot tell me that that is not energy and that it has to go somewhere when my body can no longer function. It's got to go somewhere. That is what science tells us. What science has not been able to tell us is where it goes. So we have religions that tell us instead where science leaves off, religion picks up and says, oh, well, you go to heaven. Or if you're naughty, you go to hell. Okay, maybe. But does any other energy just disappear and go to a different plane that we never see it again? Not really.
Mm-mm.
So we don't know. We don't know everything. Of course we don't know everything. But I am pretty damn sure that what I know is pretty good. And I'm sticking with it. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. You asked.
I'm trying to go through and trying to go back and be like, okay, crap, how do I link this back into where I wanted to go?
Where did you want to go?
So I'm going to do a really shitty segue. So that brings us to other practices that are really good to do during at this time. You know, you have your ancestor veneration. You try and do what you can to respect them and remember them. And another good time, or another good thing to do during this time is trying to communicate with them.
Yes.
And if everyone's caught up to date with our past episodes.
I'm not.
I know that's why
I'm only two
lovely.
behind. I'm only two behind.
Big fan.
I'll get one done tonight. It's the Wednesday thing, man. It keeps throwing me off.
I know. One of a big practice to do during this time is divination because of that thinning veil. You know, it's easier for those on the other side to communicate with those on this.
Instead of it being a long distance phone call, it's like a local.
It is easier to communicate with them because there's not so much
static.
Yes. So, and some of those communication methods are, we've already talked about using Ouija boards. You
want to hear another goofy reason as to why it works better?
Sure.
Yeah, hit us with it.
Lay it on us.
Do you guys know about radio waves?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Radio waves travel better when?
I didn't know this was a
Day,
pop quiz.
night, hot, cold. If you had to put it all together.
You just shot the hamster that was rolling the wheel in my head.
Well, if you said hot or cold, then it's cold because then we're in the fall season.
Radio waves travel better at night and in the cold. That's why you can get an AM radio station from much farther away at night than you can during the day. So, what are radio waves? They're a form of energy. So, if energy travels better in the cold, we are in an ideal location at Samhain because it tends to get colder. Because energy is able to be picked up better in the cold.
Carrie, you're blowing my mind right
Yeah.
now.
It's weird. It's science.
Yeah.
It's literally science.
She's
So is
blowing
that
your
why the
mind.
whole
She
spirit
blew the
box
hamster in
thing
my head
is
away.
the theory behind the spirit box is that, okay, since there's energy and the radio
Yeah.
frequency is energy,
They
and
can
everyone-
manipulate it.
You
Okay.
have piqued Austin's interest with science.
It's science.
Honestly,
Magic
no,
and
seriously.
science
Like,
go hand
if you're
in
gonna
hand.
ever convince me with something, convince me with actual scientific facts behind it, because then I'm like, okay,
When we can prove it, it's science. When we can't, it's magic. It's that.
Yeah.
It's really that simple.
Or whenever Lauren tries to explain it, she just tries and then fails and goes, fuck it, it's magic. It's radio waves, and this is... It's magic.
Lauren's like, I did
There's
math,
a reason.
magic.
Yes.
Oh yeah, if you ever catch me doing math, that is going to be some major fucking magic going on. I think I've done. I did algebra once after high school. It was like 3 or 4 years ago.
The only reason I was so good at geometry is because there were shapes and colors involved, and I'm an illustrator. So.
See, I almost failed geometry. It was algebra was where it was at for me.
Oh yeah, I hated both. All that geometry, algebra, pre-algebra, algebra 2. It was math. Screw it. I'm not a math
I
person.
sucked at geometry, but I was good at trigonometry, so I don't know how that makes
Guys,
sense.
this isn't supposed to turn into a horror episode. You're talking about scary topics.
Well, it is right before
And then-
Halloween,
and
Samhain,
then-
and all that stuff.
I walked down the stairs and into the hallway, and from the hallway, I walked through the door.
And then there was a word problem.
And then I was going to say, and at that door was the math teacher.
I thought you said
teacher?
the meth teacher. Chem 101.
Math and science. It's not my strongest forte, and when you mix them both together.
So Johnny has 6 apples.
What time will the train arrive?
If it goes
side time.
Purple.
My grandmother stocks up on Pepsi. Like, so if you look in the garage, there's usually a wall of Pepsi. So you know those weird math problems where someone goes in and buys something in weird quantities? It's my grandmother walks in the Jewel, gets 20 cases of Pepsi, loads it into the car, but realizes there's 4 still out in the cart. How long does it take her to go all the way back home and then come all the way back to get those other 4 that you couldn't fit in the car?
That's fine.
Yeah. So, anyways, divination.
Divination is a thing that happens at Samhain.
Yes, and we talked about Ouija in it was the very first episode of our divination series. And believe it or not, both of my Ouija board experiences just so happened to be at Carrie's with the Gathering Grove.
Are those the only ones, really?
Yeah. I had never touched a Ouija board before that. So you can imagine how freaked out I was when you were like, "Oh, Lauren's coming to Samhain this year. We can do the Ouija boards."
And here I am. I own
Triggered.
2, and I want to. And she tells me all the time,
No, you can't touch it. No, you can't touch
You're
it.
not ready.
Get away. Get away. Don't touch it.
but you bought me these. Like, what?
They're for show.
They're for show.
Yeah, no, I'm going to go home and I'm going to play with one.
So what about Ouija boards?
Just gonna do it.
It's another way to contact the
That's
spirits.
basically what I was saying. We were talking about Ouija boards in the last one. That's all I
Check
was
out
getting
our
at.
Ouija board episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check out our Ouija board
It's in
episode.
the description.
Ouija boards have such a bad rap, and it's literally, this is a pen. It's no different than this pen. All it is a tool to write. That's it. They started off as a frickin' pencil attached to a planchette.
And
We
went
talk
over
about that in
yeah.
our Ouija episode.
Yeah, I
In
mean,
our
it's
episode.
literally a tool, and some people freak out and go crazy about them.
It's more of like a physical tool physical. When I say that, I mean like you use it and people like they see the planchette go into different areas and it spells something out. There's other practices that are really good for things like scrying. You take a dark colored bowl, you fill it with water, and then you stare into it, and either you get something like a mental image of something, or something shows up in like a form of a picture in the bowl. There's the scrying, that's the water method of that. There's the scrying mirrors. They're black mirrors, and basically you put a candle in front of it and you do the same thing. You look into the mirror, and either something comes to you spiritually, mentally, emotionally, depending on which one of the clairs works for you. But it's, different divination practices can be used a little more easier during this time, and specifically ones that you want to use to communicate with those other side would be spirit boards, scrying, pendulum work. With pendulum, that's another one of those things. Unless you have one of those, they make boards now and
Pendulum
cloths
boards, yep.
that have like the alphabet system, and then they have the yes, the no, they maybe. But pendulums can be used in a couple different ways. And again, we're going to go through a lot more of these practices along with our divination series, so we just haven't gotten there yet.
The thing about divination, though, not everybody can do everything. Right. I suck at scrying. I've tried. I can't scry. I cannot scry. I don't need to, because I can work a pendulum like a damn bitch, man.
I have a question. So why does it have to be black, like the scrying mirror?
It's
reflective purposes.
Yes. Okay.
So when you look into something, like if you're looking at a mirror...
What is black? What is black?
Her shirt.
No, think about it. What is black?
The void.
No. Black is all the colors together.
That's true.
That's why you use black. Because it's everything combined into one, and it creates a good reflective surfaces. But because it's everything combined into one, that's the main reason. It's all of it.
So use a divinatory practice that works for you. Like me personally, I can't use pendulums. I can scry, and then I can use a Ouija board or a spirit board, but and then some people are gifted mediums. Mm-hmm. So they can...
You got to try out to find out what works for you.
Yeah. So divination is really good to use at this time. Also, a lot of protection spells and protection rituals are also performed during this time. Also, because of what we said earlier, it's about mortality. It's about all the other stuff that happens during this time. So protection. When you start the year off, you want to start it off on a good foot. You want to get rid of the old stuff, let it go. It no longer serves you. Might as well protect me from the year coming up. Apparently, we all did a really shitty job when 2020 hit. So, wow. Looking at the time, we've covered a lot of ground. And I don't think we can cover any more in this topic for right now.
Wait, it's Sunday? I came here yesterday. Looking at the time.
Yeah. We've got a lot of really good information in this episode. And obviously, this isn't going to be the first time that we're going to discuss Halloween and Dia de los Muertos and all the cool stuff that happens in October. But as it being our first season, we would be stupid not to cover this topic. So, Kerri, why don't you take us away with what's going on in your life right now? How can people find you and follow you in your adventures?
Yeah. Well, my webpage is kerriconnor.com, and that is KerriConnor. It was put up for me by some wonderful young lady that does web pages. And I'm currently working on a book. It is untitled, but it is about CBD in a body-mind spiritual sense. And that will be out sometime, I'm trying to think, it'll be spring of 2022. In April of 2021, I have 420 meditations. 420 meditations. Yeah, 420 meditations. Got to remember the name of the book. Coming out, which are 420 meditations to do while you are stoned off your ass. It's about meditating with cannabis, which my most recent book is Wake, Bake, and Meditate, which is about meditating with cannabis and learning how to meditate with cannabis. And it gives you very specific meditations to begin with, and then the 420 is more of a daily type of practice. And I have possibly some other things in the works for next year. Hoping. Fingers crossed.
And you can find Kerri's work. You can follow her website. And where else can they find your...
Facebook, Kerri Connor Author. Instagram, Kerri Connor Author. And I have other books, too. I did the Ostara book for Llewelyn. Most of my books are through Llewelyn. The first 3 are not, but since then I've been with them. I have Spells for Tough Times, which is a very large book about some of the things I have gone through in my life and friends had gone through, and it's a spell book to help you get through the crap. That's really what it is. It's a spell book to help you get through crap, because we have spell books for prosperity and for love and for money, and nobody wants to talk about the crap that people go through. So I wrote a book about the crap.
And with that, thank you so much, Kerri, for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Busy schedule. I gotta go home and write a Samhain ritual. Finish the Samhain ritual.
We really appreciate you coming and talking with us and informing us on things and
shooting the shit.
Yeah.
Shooting the shit got shot.
Yeah.
And if anyone has any questions either on the topic or questions for Kerri, you can reach out to Kerri. We will link all of her info and how to reach her and find all of her art, books, and stuff like that in the episode notes. If you have any questions for us, do the same thing. Comment, like, subscribe, and most importantly, share. And with that concludes our episode 8 of our Samhain special. See you guys next week.
Bye, guys.
See you later.
Bye.